Hi, Alex.
Hello.
Thank you for being on the Be Love podcast. But more than that, of course, thank you for being my co-conspirator these last, I think it's been over 2 years now that we've been working
We're
together.
coming up on 3 years. It's like, yeah.
It's been a little while that we've been doing this, and you've been my cheerleader and, supporter and kind of conversation partner as we've brought these new things into being. And I'm so glad to have you on the podcast now. You interviewed me, right? Just a couple weeks ago.
And here we are again.
Here we are again. But we're gonna shift and turn the camera on you a little bit to just hear a little bit of your story. I mean, I know you, have known you for a while, so I'm sure many of our listeners know you as well. And there's always more to know about someone. And as you know, my question is always around this question of love, how love calls us, how it moves us forward. So I wonder what you might want to share about how love has called you along the path that we might be doing this work right now, that your journey might have brought you to this point. Not that this is the only work you do in the world. You do a lot of things, and love calls you, I know, in a lot of ways. And I would love to get into all of that today. But where might you like to begin?
Well, I was thinking when we were talking earlier about when we met, which was almost 26 years ago now. This year will be 26 years, the end of this year. So it's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's often, I feel like, hard to create friendships as an adult. Like there's not a lot of opportunities for that. So I'm grateful that what brought us together was I used to work at, used to be a Sunday school teacher at LaPorte New Church. And there was a youth leader training thing that happened at Freiburg at the camp. And that's where you and I met. So
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. Yeah. And what is it that drew you to be a youth leader at the Sundays and do Sunday school there? Do you want to give us that background?
That's just a natural fit for me. My degree is in child development with a focus on youth services. All of my jobs, that's been the focus ever since I left college. I mean, I've always liked working with kids. So I would say that's what brought me there. And then sometime after that, I became involved in SCYL and helping with that, et cetera. So that was like a natural fit. And then what brought us together working with the Helen Keller Spiritual Life Collaborative. So I was leaving my 20 plus year job at a school in administration, and you were launching this new thing and called me like out of the blue, like, hey, what do you think about this idea? And I was like, sounds perfect. I got the time. I love being, I think I shared with you, I love being a second in command kind of, and I love that role, supporting someone, especially visionaries. I've worked with a lot of those, and I like those sorts of people, and being the person in the background, kind of handling details and stuff like that, and the different directions things can go on like the turn of a dime or whatever the phrase is. I like that. Keeps it exciting. It works for my Gemini brain for sure. Anyway, so we started slow with our Be Love Thursday night meeting with a couple of like test groups or whatever, and then it's grown from there. So the reason I was drawn to this kind of work, besides loving you and being happy to work with you and support you, is that it always matters to me to be doing work that is making a difference, a good difference in the world, like not just making money. Like it has to be more than that for me. And so it definitely was, I was supportive of the Helen Keller Collaborative prior to it being the iteration it was when I was joining up, when it was going to be a center and that whole thing. I was excited about it. I was excited about what Helen Keller did for the world and to be a part of that. So I guess that's what brings me here anyway.
That's what brings you here. I love that desire to make a positive difference in the world. I wonder if you might say a bit about what I mean, there's a lot of positive differences we all can make in different ways. What's the difference you really want to make in the world? You have any words for that?
Well, to be honest, I think the biggest positive difference I made in the world was parenting 3 children who I think are pretty spectacular.
Me
and
too.
I really threw myself into that. Like my made my careers, my different jobs in life work around being a parent. And that was always my number one thing. And it was really pretty much my sole focus in terms of what I was putting energy into and caring about was raising them. So I was like disengaged from really what was going on in the bigger world. I was just really focused on these little humans that I had. So then after that, or I guess at the same time, it was basically trying to help people feel loved and feel like the world is better because they're in it or something like that. I don't know. To try and honor people and make sure that they knew there was at least one person who really cared about them and that life was good for them. And I think that's probably the bulk of it for me.
Yeah, that's like the focus. And I see
Yeah.
that in your parenting. And I'm even thinking of some of the reflections you help me with when we're going along. You're always really tuned into making sure people feel seen and heard. You're always kind of tuned into, well, are we leaving that person? Let's make sure not to leave that person out, or let's make sure you're very sensitive, I think, to people's feelings of belonging and wanting people to have that sense, which is so helpful for the work we're trying to do because
Mhm.
we want people to feel that belonging. And you certainly have done that for your children. My goodness, they are humans who belong on this planet and I think have that sense of belonging in themselves. Shout out to Cody and Wyatt Scout if you're listening.
I love you.
Yeah. And I love that. And I think that maybe also resonates with what we're trying to do because I think my mission certainly is, being the church is not just about some big thing. It is how we love our children. It's how we love the people closest to us. And that's such sacred work.
There's that one, I can't remember. There's that one book that's like the 3 questions or something like that. Do you know that book? And it's like the most important thing is who's in front of you, what's happening right now. Third one. That feels so true. And often hard for me actually to stick to because I'm so easily distracted. Like not where I am currently, not in the conversation I'm in. So it's not easy for me to do it all, but I do believe that it's true. And kind of with all of the noise going on in the world, especially the not good noise happening right now, it's hard to stay present and with the person that you're with, doing the thing that you're doing with them. But I think it's like one of the most important things that we can do, or that I can do, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and maybe I'll mirror back to you. I know you have a million interests and you can get distracted, but I almost see you as someone who's like, you're moving, but whenever you're moving, you're right there. But then you're right over here. But I don't perceive you as like pretending to listen and you're somewhere. Like I feel like you're darting about, attending to a lot of things and attending a lot of needs, a lot of what is present in the world. And I really relate to that that you were able to focus all your energy in on your children for a time. And then when they grew, that the world is our children, the children of the world become our concern. And that's just I think that's part of the life process. But your ability to really tune into your children's need and love them closely, I'm guessing, is actually what gives you the ability to want to tune into the larger world and love it closely instead of just tuning it out. What's helping you to tune in right now in the midst of the noise and love people closely? Are you finding opportunities to have maybe an impact on the bigger world, but that's actually kind of intimate or connected?
So I'm trying to be as connected to my local community as possible, I would say. And it's a little like it feels like there's so many dumpster fires going on, right? It's like really hard to know what's the most useful thing to focus on. I mean, the people, but also like what's the issue? What's so many social justice issues happening. But anyway, so I with someone else, I started a local social queer group, and we meet once a month, and that's really important to me and to connect with the community. Working as a barista, very part-time, like not even like just over 12 hours a week, but it gives me an opportunity to really connect with the people in my hometown. This is where I've lived all my life other than when I was away at college. And so I just meet so many people that way, and my job working in the school system also allowed me to I feel very connected to my love that. So there's that True Colors group, and then I'm involved in groups that are trying to prepare for ICE becoming a bigger issue in our area. And I want to be a part of, like, I think we're headed in the direction of having like neighborhood, like making it even, smaller little bits of community. And so I want to be instrumental in that happening whenever that starts to roll out, basically. And then when I think about social justice issues, like I want there to be the one thing that I can focus on that feels like it's kind of fixing everything else if we just do this one thing. Because I really feel like I've bounced around from trans issues, which are huge, and now peace and not war, and racial issues, and there's so many, right? But I've recently, and you and I have talked about this, have started feeling like economic injustice, I think, is like the thing that if we were to fix that, then people wouldn't have the power, bad actors wouldn't have the power and the resources to just do whatever they want and to get out of consequences and all those sorts of things. So but it's not something that I know a lot about in terms of like what needs to be done to fix, or who fix it, and who are the leaders in that world and how to follow it. I'm interested in it. So if there's anybody out here listening to this and is interested in that, let's get together.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the thing. That's the direction I feel like I want to go in, and
kind of rising in you. I love that that's rising in you. I think it's rising in me. And we've talked about this, that was what Helen Keller saw as the primary issue of her time. And that was 100 years ago. And now there's, 12, I think the latest I heard is like there are 12 humans on the planet that have more resources than the, 40 billion.
400, whatever.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like insane. I mean, it's become even more insane. And she had that, of course, this was before, this was the era of communism. And so we're in like the fall, communism fell and all these things. So we know it doesn't always work in that. There have been attempts to create economic justice that have ended up becoming authoritarian regimes that have been incredibly harmful. And just because that didn't work doesn't mean it's not an issue.
Right.
Just because that didn't solve the problem doesn't mean, oh, well, let's just not even think about it. It really feels like it is something that a lot of people are thinking about, and there isn't like a movement in the same way as racial justice, or, have like movement leaders. And you wonder, maybe that's because the people with all the money are making sure that doesn't happen. It's
right. Well, certainly like when ideas like communism or socialism or whatever go south, then those people who are like, capitalism is the answer, that's the free society, jump on that as like, see, that's terrible, and this is better. So capitalism just keeps itself going by making all the other possible paths look like they're god awful, and pretending like this one's so good. It's so good for everybody.
Yes, but that question of resources and honoring the worthiness of all human beings to have what they need to survive and thrive, that the fact that that's not a value that we're able to actually manifest in the world does feel really central to the harm that can be perpetuated. And it's, from my perspective, it's very much a spiritual issue. It's like, it's this materialism. It's like, get as much as you can. And I think that's the place where I do see some signs of hope, is I think more and more humans are recognizing that's not necessarily the path to happiness. Having all the things, and we're sort of exposing the billionaires, or the one, they're living unhappy lives. They're doing miserable things. This is not leading to prosperity. It's leading, as you said, it's allowing for bad actors to perpetrate harm. And I don't know what the path is for that, but asking those questions feels very, very vital. And I don't know, somehow it feels connected to parenting too, because it's just like, do you have what you need? What do you need to eat before you start your day? Like the body, and I think that's one of the things about this moment is so many movements, so many religions, so many can become sort of disembodied. Like, we're not going to talk about the practical things. We're just going to, I don't know, disassociate from that.
Yeah.
And our work, I definitely want it to be more grounded in our lived experience. I love all the justice work you're doing that's with humans in your neighborhood. I'm slightly jealous that you live in the town you grew up in, because I don't have that same sense of network and family and community. What's it like to be? I mean, you've named some positives, and maybe there's more, but like, you've grown up with these people. You've changed. You've gone through this process of transitioning, and then also raising kids, and then having them leave home. What have you learned about people over the years of being in a town like that and having that desire to be connected to community?
So generally my experience is that that's what other people want as well, to feel connected, and and the fun in like, oh, so like all the connecting points, it makes me feel so. It was a thing that I always like really loved going around town with my dad, because so he worked as a heating and air conditioning guy, and so he knew lots of people in the area. He did both residential and businesses, like the big bank in town and stuff like that. So he knew a lot of people. Everywhere we went, my dad would know the people and talk to them, and they're so and so's parent and whatever. He would know, like, are my friends, I know their uncle so and so, whatever. It just seems so cool to me. And now I'm like that. Now I'm like going, and they're cousins with, and whatever. It's fun to do. And I think people enjoy that. It's funny, when I was younger, when I was like in college in my very early 20s, I just wanted to get out of this city. Like, I did not want to live here anymore. Typical, I guess, of probably lots of people. All of a sudden they hate the area they grew up in. And then slowly I was like, you know what? It's actually, I love the Four Seasons. I've got this great big beautiful lake. I'm right by Chicago. I'm like, it's really low cost of living here. Like, there's a lot of benefits to being here. Fortunately, right now, it seems quite possible that I will have to move. I will be moving from here, because Indiana is poised to follow in the footsteps of Kansas. They're like the only other state that has been tracking birth certificate change amendments and driver's license amendments. And so my thought is I'll have to move from here before I have a license that is invalid and all of that stuff. Or because mine was really hard to change, because I was adopted and whatever, this whole thing. Birth certificate stuff was tricky. I kind of don't want to go through it all again. And that is really kind of devastating to think about, not being in this area anymore. And then I wonder if, like, maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's the intent, is to get people to leave states, make it so horrible in this state that you choose to go elsewhere. I don't quite. Anyway, sorry, that was a bit of a side.
It's not really an aside. It sounds pretty central to your ability to follow the call of love right now, is these forces that on the one hand you're working to change in your efforts to bring social justice, and are directly impacting your ability to be here on the planet.
And I'm the third generation living in this town. My grandparents were
in your family. You're the third generation.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and Wyatt's here with me now, so he's the fourth.
He's the fourth.
But yeah, second, lifelong generation.
Well, and I'm struck by your sharing of feeling this deep connection to your town and this love for it, and that's actually the living, embodied experience you're having, and you're being threatened by policymakers, kind of the system of government and bureaucracy. And I think that, it's devastating, and it's different perhaps than, I don't know. I'm sure there have been times when humans like yourself have not felt connected and embodied in their town and safe to be in relationship. And so I'm grateful for that part. And that feels like, in some ways, the more living part, or the more embodied part, the more real part. Like, the people who are actually in your town know you and love you, and maybe don't always understand you or agree with your positions. I don't know. It's definitely it's my hope that that's what's true on this planet now, is that there actually are more and more embodied humans who want to see each other eye to eye and love each other. And this drama being played out in these power structures holds power, but it's power in a very, again, sort of like a disembodied way.
Yeah.
I hope you don't have to
it's definitely
move.
my experience that the people I interact with, I'm sure there's differences of opinions about stuff, but it's all like kind and caring, and And that's the thing. People do have different ideas of like, maybe they see, we can agree on the problem, but we have different ideas of what the solution is. And I'm cool with that. Like let's talk it out. Let's figure it out. But what it feels like is decisions are being made that are not representative of what the whole thinks. I don't think there's the support, but we have this process that put these people in office who are now going in a direction that the people who put them in office and the people who didn't are not in agreement with, but there's nothing we can do about it at this.
And you wonder how much economics are involved in terms of the money that has supported those policies and those shifts. Well, it's part of what I think it's a big part of what you bring to the work of the collaborative is you are so open to people being different and people having different ideas about things. And you're not quick to demonize or want to exclude. And you want to be yourself and you want to share your perspective and your opinion. And I think that's so much the atmosphere we're trying to create is like, it's often so much one or the other. It's like either we all agree or we all stay silent.
Mm-hmm.
But can we have differences of opinions and still be in communication and have love for each other? Like, I think of like being at the grocery store. It's not like, maybe somebody's wearing a t-shirt that has like a strong opinion on it, but
right.
In general, like we're just buying milk and
right.
doing what we need to do. And who knows what that person's political opinions are or their identity. And I keep thinking of like, and then an earthquake happens and we're all stuck in the grocery store and we have to like figure out how to take care of each other. Like, are these differences of opinions going to really get in the way of like our common survival? But they are getting in the way of our common survival when they're being, anyway, it's a big, it's,
and those, the people, the powers that be, the people who have the wealth and the resources.
Yeah.
They're making it so we can't see who the common enemy is, if we want to say it, like, which is the people holding the wealth. I'm now convinced, and instead see each other as the enemy. Jamie and I were just talking about this, where he's totally ready for a zombie apocalypse, right? Like he feels like he could do that. And I'm like, yeah. And the whole world, all the people would be on the same side. There would be a clear enemy. There would be no disputing whether or not the zombies are the enemy. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, it's really hard. Maybe the enemy is, my neighbor who's got this certain flag in front of their house, or, their skin is this color, or they speak this language, or whatever. It's all being directed by somebody, not us.
Yeah.
Creating all these enemies where we should be united, because if we were all united, then we'd be quite a powerful force to deal with.
Very powerful. I still hold out hope that is what's emerging underneath it all. But yes, it does feel like we're in this time of pinging, looking for the enemy or the problem. And maybe that's partly because we are in this place of like, as I said, 67 years ago, you wouldn't be publicly trans, you wouldn't be publicly gay, there would be all kinds of things that wouldn't be safe that are safe in community now. But then it's a new thing that those who don't feel comfortable with it, now there's a new enemy to name and to see. Whereas for a while it was all under the surface. And I just like to believe we're at a stage of growth where we're just having to see it all, and where there's like uncomfortability and friction. But I think hopefully we're going to wake up on the other side of it and stop making enemies,
right.
Stop looking for someone else to blame.
Well, and to approach things, I feel so appreciative of Chelsea's creation series group. And the first time we met, she talked about curiosity and compassion, and it's such a useful way to approach things. Yes. And if we did that with people who had different opinions than we did, instead of assuming we know why they think what they think, like what their motivations are, what their intentions are, and instead sort of go like, tell me more about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. That we would find all these points of connection and all these places where we are much more alike than we are different.
Yes.
And that doesn't seem possible like in social media or anything like that. That really is face-to-face conversations. Like, you don't have to be in the same room necessarily, but even like this, face-to-face interacting with people, they show up differently, right? And there's I don't know, there's not this thing to hide behind and just say whatever and not be called out on it, like not meanly called out on it, but like, oh, tell me more about that. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yes. That's what I'm about. That's what I'm about, is these kinds of conversations. And it does feel like it's, as you've articulated, it's just a powerful way to be compassionate and curious about what's going on in our own experience, then allows us to be compassionate and curious about what's going on around us. And both are necessary. I think that's what I learned from Chelsea and the IFS work that she's bringing to our creation journey. And it's a process of growth. We have to mature in our willingness to be with difference and to be with the difference inside and then the difference around us. Do you see yourself having matured? Can you think of like previous versions of yourself that maybe were less comfortable with difference, or do you see any points
Sure.
of change that
I
have
mean, I
happened?
think we all start out with like way more black and white thinking, right?
Yeah.
So that was definitely true about me, especially I would say in my teen years and in my 20s, probably
Mm-hmm.
that whole chunk of time. I was really judgmental about different things and
Really?
had strong opinions about things. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was adopted. So for a big part of my early years, I was anti-abortion because then I wouldn't be here, right?
You
It was
wouldn't be
is how
here,
I
right?
imagined abortion wasn't legal at that time. And I ended up meeting my birth mother, and I asked her if abortion had been legal. I should not have asked this question, and her answer was yes, she would have had it. So that led me to have strong feelings about it. And I had a couple of friends in college that they ended up making that choice. They were just not ready, right? And I was not kind about it. I was like, they were wrong. I wish there was some way that I take their baby out of their uterus and put it in mine, like some sort of thing. I mean, I don't think I wasn't like, I didn't say they were going to hell or anything like that, but I was
Yeah.
definitely judgy about this
Yeah.
choice.
Sure.
It was like in my 30s, I then was in conversation with a couple of these people. I was like, I'm so sorry. I was such an ass about that. Like I think by that time abortion wasn't a right decision for me ever, but that was not my decision to make for other people or to judge other people, those sorts of things. So I mean, I definitely have had many
Yeah.
experiences like that where it's
Yeah.
and it's interesting if people know you when you were young or at different stages of your life, but don't interact with you much currently, they tend
Mhm.
to, you're like frozen in time for them
Sure.
as this other person
Mhm.
with these other thoughts or whatever. And it's like, no, people, just like you've grown and you've changed and you're not the same person, like me neither, we sort of pigeonhole people into how they used to be by some temporary way they were before.
That's a great example. Thank you for sharing that. And it's so personal. And I do think sometimes the things we are most judgmental about actually do have kind of something really sensitive and personal. And I love that you were able to sit with that and grow in it, because sometimes I think we don't take the time to sort of look at why does this hurt, or why does this, and we just keep trying to hurt other people because we're hurt.
Right.
Well, maybe this is my own sensitivity about something I've really experienced myself. That takes time, and when you're 20,
Sure.
you're maybe not ready to look at that. Yeah.
There's too much other stuff you're trying to figure out
Yeah.
when you're 20.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Exactly. Because we all carry hurts for sure.
Yeah, it's easy to be reactive about them too. I mean, I imagine too, if I was someone who couldn't have, for whatever reason, would lean towards anti-abortion as well,
Yeah.
I would, let me take your baby. Don't kill it. I can understand like ending up with that thought process. But
And how to hold that, how to make space for that. I do wonder about that with the pro-life movement, that on many of people in that movement, I mean, they're moved by love. They're moved
right.
by care for children, and they're moved by, and then that love, that protective love, fierce love, can then
Mm-hmm.
become perverted and become violent and
Right.
destructive to others. And that's such a, I mean, truthfully, that's sort of what plays out, I think, everywhere. Like the violence that we see, on some level, it is starting from this protectiveness or this love, but then it, again, and making the other the enemy.
Well, it seems like when it becomes an issue is when we take that and decide that the answer is to control other people.
Yes.
Which isn't that some Swedenborgian
Yes,
main
I
thing,
think
I
that
think?
is central to the spiritual call. Exactly. We need to be in spiritual freedom, and that desire to dominate and control others is evil. That's hell. That's how we create hell on earth, is that desire to control each other and not trusting that God is in control. I definitely, the longer I'm on this journey, I feel like that's because I have some desires to control in me. I don't know if you have any in you. I think it's in all of us, right? It's like wanting to be safe, wanting to have some control over what's happening. And so much of the spiritual path is actually recognizing that we're not in control, that we're not meant to be entirely in control of anyone, and to really allow for more spaciousness, more freedom. That's what will bring heaven on earth. And I do have a sense that more of us are moving in that direction. And then there's like a very strong backlash because that that impulse to control is so afraid of losing control.
Sure.
It's just,
Well, and
yeah.
fear, I think, is a big driver of the need to
Mhm,
control, right? It's
mhm. Yeah,
because you feel out of control of something
yeah,
that's happening. So
yeah.
I feel like parenthood's a good place to really learn that lesson that you can't control other people. And there's this illusion, especially in early parenthood, of like you are kind of in control,
Sure, sure.
but nope. Kids will teach you like all sorts of ways you are not in
You
control.
are not in
I am
control.
a separate being.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're deciding when they eat, when they sleep, what they
Mhm.
wear, but on some level, yeah, they're their own being, and they're
And you can't really decide when they sleep. I mean, they're
no,
kind of in charge of that.
and you
And you
can't
can't
really decide
decide
what they eat.
when they're going to the bathroom, none of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or what thing they might say out in public that you're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I can't believe they just said that thing, or like all sorts of things. They are independent little beings.
They are. Do you feel like you are okay, like getting better at trusting that like, I guess I want to ask this question. It's like, okay, we don't control our children, but we care for them. And we started there. Like, you gave your life to your children. You gave them, you gave all. So what did you give them if you weren't controlling them, but you were nurturing them? What do you feel like you offered your kids? What is that? What is it to hold that space? Because it feels like we could maybe extrapolate to how we have to be in the world with others.
Right. So guidance and education or something
Mhm,
along those lines.
mhm.
But what I had to learn was when it was asked for, not just fire hose it. And acceptance. I think like I just really still try to see them as someone who's just like me, figuring it out and having their own perspectives about stuff. And I mean, I've definitely made lots of mistakes with that, where I really felt sure that I knew what the right choice was, what the right behavior was, whatever and was kind of forceful about it. Like whenever I did that, it never worked. And then I had to come back around, and be like, okay, clearly I was trying to push this, way more. When they're little, there's some stuff that you just have to handle because they're little, right? And there's lots they don't know. Like, they're not necessarily going to make choices that are good for them, but like that evolves and you have to evolve along with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I especially learned those lessons as my kids were like teenagers and now young adults, that I really just have to like sit back and be supportive and ultimately let them know I love them 100% exactly as they are, and I always will, no matter what,
Yeah.
is kind of the biggest takeaway for me, I guess. And so that's what I think we have to do with other humans, which is tricky when you start so I've shared this before in one of our groups about my birth father, having a conversation with my birth father, who I only talked to like twice in my life. And in my second conversation with him was when he talked about this idea of people having this spirit that's doing the best that they can, and we can't stand in judgment of them, that sort of thing. And like, I live by that now and believe that. It's hard to know what the response is when someone goes, what about Hitler, or whatever, because there are these extreme examples of people.
Mhm.
But really, I think, well, Hitler had whatever upbringing that Hitler had, and whatever influences on his life, and whatever, challenges going on for him that caused him to behave the way that he did, and caused the people around him to follow his direction and his leadership or whatever. And if I was Hitler, I would behave as Hitler behaved, right?
Which is just like a scary thought, but I think a really powerful one. I share that perspective that we're all growing and we're all shaped and we all have freedom and choice, and those choices emerge from our experiences and from what we've been through. And then when those experiences shape you to be people like you and me who kind of want to love everyone, which didn't seem to be what Hitler was about.
Right.
So when your experiences get you to the place of having that awareness of everyone's doing the best they can and we're all in this together, and yeah, to have that, I just certainly am working to practice that, like have a basic love for everyone. Like this doesn't mean you can necessarily come into my house anytime you want, or
Right.
And love doesn't mean I approve of all your choices, or it's just a basic understanding that we're here together, sort of like you and your kids. Here we are. We're in the house together. I don't like the choices you're making right now, but I love you and I care for you and I care for your well-being. And this is a question I sit with all the time. It's like, if Hitler was in my house, like, how could I be helped? Like, how can we help each other to become more loving? That's one of the questions I'm sitting with a lot. We're all doing the best we can. And as we learn to do better, how can we help others to learn better, to do better? And I kind of like your image of the parent. It's like you're there to provide guidance when needed, to share your opinion, and to just have this unconditional positive regard.
Well, I think it's seeking for the thing that you can say, oh, it's the way you really thought that through, or the way you're whatever. Find the thing, that you can be like, that's really beautiful the way you did this. You may disagree with all of it, but it's like, or, oh, I really understand you feeling that way or thinking that way. Finding the commonality, or finding the thing to rate, whatever it is that you want more of, you try and raise that up and bring attention to it, as opposed to focusing on negative stuff. Because I think that if you're focusing on negative stuff, which Jamin's listening to this, I'm really bad at that with him. So I'm sorry, he gets the worst of me.
Yeah, that's true. Usually with partners.
Right. But if what you're trying to focus on is all the beautiful things about them, then they feel good about that and they do more of that, which sounds manipulative, but it's not manipulative. It's just, that's how we bring out the best in each other, as opposed to nitpicking or attacking the not good parts, because that just makes people feel terrible about themselves. And when you feel terrible, you are not motivated or have the resources to do the best that you can.
And that's hard to do. It may be impossible to do over social media. It's impossible to do when you're treating each other like a soundbite, because then you're just warring opinions. But when you're in a room with other people, you could have incredibly different political beliefs or theological, and yet we could still find some common humanity in these ways. Have some compassion and sensitivity for the pro-lifer who has this feeling of hurt. Have even some admiration for their desire to care, and then be able to kind of have someone who abortion has really kind of like saved their lives or made possible the life that they couldn't have had. And then just sort of sit in the hurt of it all. I do feel like that's part of what makes this moment so painful, is we're not really willing to sit in the hurt of it all. We'd much rather not feel the hurt and just say, you're the problem, which is so screwed up because it creates so much more hurt. But yeah, just sort of the grief and the this is out of our control. Like this is life. It's big and people are going to make different decisions. And
I think that being really aware of what's going on in our own body, like you referenced that earlier in this conversation. So at one of the last True Colors, meaning that social group I was talking about, there was someone who said something that I had an immediate physical reaction to. It was a difficult thing to hear this person say. And I really should have taken a moment to like go, Like, wow, like my chest is tight. I'm sweating and cold at the same moment. I feel like I could cry. Like I have all this physical stuff going on and I just plowed through it. Right. And I just like that has to, I'll deal with that later or whatever, you know? And so that caused me to, I feel like, react in a non-productive way. And this conversation just escalated. We had two people not really listening to each other and it did not go well. And I wish that what I had done was go, you know what? I'm having a big physical reaction to that. I need to take a minute, you know? And really I needed to take a minute and have that just push pause on what was happening in that conversation until I could come back in my body. I was like out of my body. I was like squished out of it from this reaction, you know? It was not productive. It was not useful or productive. It was not good for all of the other people at the table. And it didn't get resolved. It got put aside for a moment and then it came back up and the same thing happened. It was not good. In this space I'm trying to create to be nice and safe, you know? It was like,
thank you for your honesty about that, because it's hard to create a space that's nice and safe. And it's for exactly these reasons. But what a great awareness, because I think the reality is that feeling you were having probably contains the seed of helping that conversation actually move in a positive direction. That's one of my strong feelings. And that's a big commitment I have with with our work together, is to honor our feelings, trust that they have information for us, and not, because I mean, on some level, when we put our feelings aside and we just we are being social media, basically. We're being mouthpieces, you know, we're not bringing all our wisdom to the table. And it's destructive. I'm sorry that happened. I hope you'll be able to, I have had experiences like that where I've ignored myself and it hasn't gone well. It doesn't always work to come back to it because it obviously depends on if the other people are receptive. And so it's definitely, it's not an always fix, but with people I trust and care about, I can have something go wrong and then come back and go, okay, I've been thinking about this and I had this big feeling. And I think there's something really powerful about bringing our feelings and our body's experience. Because you think about the world today and all of the craziness, the only way this can happen is because we're ignoring our bodies. Like if we were in our bodies, we could not be this cruel to each other. I just don't believe it. You know, it's because
that's where empathy really lies, I think, you know, or in a big part.
And we've kind of been trained to not be empathetic, to not be surprised that there's all this inequity and poverty and people begging that, like, oh, this is just normal. I always think of that when I'm like with my children, when we were first walking around Boston. It's like, why is that person not? That's a really good question. You know, that's not let's brush this off. Like why is the world, why do we have, I keep thinking of our common beloved friend Ava. She was 4 or something, and we were talking about some issue, and she's like, "Let's protest," and she just wanted to like go protest in the street of Freiburg, you know, like the next. And on one level, it's like, "Oh, what a cute kid," but like, yeah, we probably shouldn't be protesting this. You're right. We should, you know, the amount of complacency that has become normalized. That's a big part of this moment, is that's sort of been lulled into this. This is how it is.
Well, and also it's exhausting to protest or to you know, to really engage with every single thing and incident, especially if there has to be time where we're taking care of ourselves. That's a place where is that I do tend to go like, I want to do this and that, and this is happening and whatever. I'm very Gemini. And not enough time to like take care of this body and this emotions and all of that sort of thing. Like, and we really have to do that if we're going to be effective.
Yes. Are you finding ways? What's helping you right now to find your center, your ground, or helping you to rest?
Interestingly, I do allow myself sometimes to nap in the middle of the day. Feels so lazy and so wrong and all sorts of things. But I have a tiredness that happens like mid-afternoon. I can ignore it, and I can just, if I'm feeling sleepy, get up and do things or whatever, and then it will pass. Or I can take 20, 30 minutes and have a
Mm-hmm.
quick nap.
Yeah.
And that's probably good for me.
Yeah. Yeah. You
I've
start
not
work at
fully,
like 5:30, right? I mean, yeah, you should have a nap.
and I'm trying to be more aware of my body. I've mostly my relationship with my body has been kind of like annoyance that it has needs, hate having to go to the bathroom and, like all those things. It takes time out of what I'm doing in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm getting older. It's like, well, I kind of need this body if I want to stay around. I
Yeah.
suppose I should be paying attention and giving it some respect. It probably deserves that. And like I have arthritis in my hands and stuff like that. So I'm just forced. My body's making me pay attention and take care of it. That are things that maybe wouldn't be an issue if I had done a better. Hindsight is 2020.
Who knows? It's
Do
hard
what I
to
can
say.
now.
Yeah. This is where the body is that you are in now. Yeah. Well, I so relate to that. We can't attend to everything. And I think when I say like this, injustice has been normalized and we have to see it, it's like, and you're right. Like if we just open our eyes to every single problem right now, like we become incredibly overwhelmed and often frozen because there's like, which direction do I move in? Which is definitely why I come at this from a spiritual perspective, is this belief that if you are thriving, I will thrive. Like if you're well, I will be well. If each of us kind of can take responsibility for our own wellness and our own call to act in whatever small or large ways, we're like, that's much more of service to me than you trying to solve all the problems of the world and becoming really overwhelmed with yourself.
Well, and the thing you're talking about with your kids, how important it is when they notice something like that to really engage with it at that moment, even if you can't at every second engage with homelessness and et cetera, because they sort of take our cue from our reaction to it, right? It makes me think of, so we had this older dog and he was starting to have seizures and stuff like that. So my ex and I agreed that we would have him put to sleep, but we didn't want to tell our kids that that's what we were doing. This was me trying to control things, right? And I was worried about them feeling like, oh, if I'm not doing well, you might just put me to sleep. Like those sorts of things. So I wanted to play it like he just died in the yard. So my ex-husband took him. He was put to sleep. He brought him back, put him in the backyard. And then Scout sees Hooter, was the dog's name, sees Hooter in the backyard and is like, oh, or I might have said like, oh no, I'm play acting or whatever. And Scout looks at me like, oh my gosh, big tears or whatever, and looks at my ex and he's a flat affect. Like he's not acting at all like he's supposed to for the scene that I've carefully constructed. And there was this, you could watch the dissonance happen on Scout's face. Like, this is horrible. Dad doesn't seem to be reacting to it at all. Like, maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe it's not that, all sorts of things. That was clearly not the way to do that. And I think that can happen when we just like, they're homeless, come on, or they're, whatever. We'll just keep going and not take a moment to reflect on it with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
The weight.
And that's such a way we shape our children, is the way we show up with our emotions and our feelings is what they learn. I that's definitely one of the things I'm coming to. It's like I can tell my kids things, I can draw boundaries, I can have rules. And it definitely feels like the thing they're getting the most from me is just my level of ability to be with my feelings and to show up and to make amends, and to, that my growth, my presence with myself has an impact on the people around me.
Well, and our actions speak so much louder than our words, right?
Yes, exactly. And they sense it. They can tell when you're play acting a death of a dog.
I don't know. I think I was doing pretty good. But no.
You were probably but your husband kind of gave it away.
Yes. No, I'm sure I was terrible.
And we are going to mess it up. And we are going to, and that's one of my things is, and can we show that we can get through it and repair? Can we mess it up?
Well, of course we're going to mess it up. And if we don't mess it up, then we're setting up some kind of unreachable ideal.
Mm-hmm.
Our humanness really needs to be front and center.
Yes. And to be owned and to be acknowledged. And I think that's right as a parent, as a child. And then again, I think as, in our collaborative, we want to be making space for that to be able to happen as well. It's not like, because we're doing church things, we're going to all be perfectly holy and never have a problem. That's when we run into so many of the problem. That's what actually creates the problem, is believing that we're not going to have problems. We're not going to have challenges.
That we're above it somehow.
Yeah. Well, I am so grateful to have you in this journey, and this is only one of many conversations. And I think this was a fitting conversation as we start this new Be Honest year, to be more honest about who we are kind of behind the scenes, helping to make this collaborative, helping to get it off the ground. Like that's the big thing. We're the primary collaborators at this time, but not because we always want to be, we don't want to be the overlords of the collaborative.
Right.
We're just holding the space as others enter in, and I'm excited for how it will grow. And I feel sad. I mean, you've named some really hard, real things that you're struggling with in your home and in your life. And that is not disconnected in my mind from the work of community, the work of church. How do we help each other right now in this moment? I mean, all of these questions are very live and on the table. And on the one hand, that's terrifying. If church was just something that happened on Sunday and we just had to go, and then our lives can be a mess the rest of the time. We don't have to deal with it. That's a lot more control. It's a little easier. I think the space we're opening in is a little more, maybe a little more real, but also a little more less contained or less controlled, because all of these issues are a part of our spiritual lives. All of you, all of me, and we don't know what's coming or what will be needed.
Well, and when we get real, when we allow realness to be there, then it's going to get messy.
Yes. Yes. Then it's going to get messy. And my prayer and my hope is that's what, just like any transition, messiness is actually a necessary ingredient to new life. Been thinking about compost lately as spring comes here, and all the things that, because for me, church and spiritual community, again, it's not just a place where you go to be told the truth or to have the correct ritual. It's about what it is to be a living community on this earth of love and care. And that includes our whole being and all of us. I'm glad to be in that community with you, Alex Gayheart. And thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me into this work.
Grateful to be here. We will continue.
We shall.
And I love it when we both are in